There's a kind of tiredness that no nap fixes. You sleep through the night. You eat well. You even take your vitamins. But by late morning or early afternoon, something in you still feels worn out. Not just your body, your spirit. And you wonder, why am I so tired? The answer isn't always physical. Sometimes the real cause of fatigue has nothing to do with muscles or medicine. Sometimes the people around you are the reason your energy keeps slipping away. Not because they mean to hurt you, not because they're bad people, but because they drain you slowly, conversation by conversation, gesture by gesture, memory by memory. And by the time you notice, they become so woven into your life that you can't tell where your exhaustion ends and their influence begins. After 60, energy becomes precious. You don't have time to waste on situations that leave you feeling small. You can't afford relationships that make you question your worth or second-guess your peace. What you feed emotionally begins to show up physically. And that's not about weakness. That's about wisdom. Your nervous system doesn't bounce back the way it did at 40. The weight of someone else's chaos, neediness, criticism, or manipulation settles into your chest, your breath, your sleep. And unless you name it, it starts to feel normal. But it's not. It's erosion. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not in anger, but in clarity. Because protecting your peace isn't cruel. It's a form of self-respect. And learning how to gently distance yourself from people who drain you is a kind of strength most of us were never taught. Today, we'll walk through 4 kinds of people who quietly drain your energy after 60, and how to recognize them, respond to them, and in some cases, release them. But we won't stop there, because there's a 5th presence even more powerful than the rest. And it doesn't come from outside. It lives inside your own voice, your own habits, your own expectations. And when we name that 5th pattern, you might finally understand why even solitude sometimes feels exhausting. Each of these 5 blocks will meet you where you are, with real stories, familiar dynamics, and gentle, doable steps to protect what matters. Your energy, your steadiness, your joy. We'll begin with a familiar figure. Not aggressive, not loud, often polite, always in need. Someone whose problems are never fully solved, whose stories circle back to the same pain, and who leaves you quietly empty after every exchange, even when you care deeply. They don't yell. They don't lash out. They just keep talking about the same problems, the same unfairness, the same people who wronged them 10 years ago. And even though you've offered every piece of advice you can think of, nothing changes. Their pain never evolves. Their story never moves forward. They call you and say, "I just need a vent," and 30 minutes later, you feel like you've run an emotional marathon and gotten nowhere. You might care deeply for them. You might have known them for decades. You might even have compassion for what they've been through. But the truth remains, they're not seeking support. They're seeking an outlet, a place to unload without the discomfort of action. And that place is often you. This is the first type of energy drainer after 60, the emotional recycler. Someone whose life has become a loop of pain, resistance, and storytelling, and who, consciously or not, pulls you into the cycle with them. They don't ask how you're really doing, or if they do, it's in passing, because your role in the conversation isn't equal. It's supportive, containing, passive, and over time, your heart starts to close, not out of judgment, but out of self-preservation. You realize that no matter how open you are, they'll never be ready to shift. And eventually it stops feeling like empathy and starts to feel like weight. The problem isn't that they're struggling. We all struggle. The problem is that they've stopped trying. And you can't carry someone who won't even stand. So what do? You start by stepping back, not in cruelty, but in care. You limit the calls. You shorten the visits. You change the subject. You stop offering solutions they don't want. You stop nodding when the same old complaint rolls out again. And most importantly, you stop feeling guilty for needing space. If the relationship matters to you, you can say it gently. "I care about you, but I don't have the energy for this kind of conversation anymore." Or, "I've noticed we keep circling the same pain. I think it's time I stop trying to fix something you're not ready to face." It might sting, but honesty often does. And if they disappear after that, you'll know your presence was being used, not respected. Your role is not to be someone's emotional landfill. You deserve relationships that replenish you, that reflect you, that remind you of your strength, not ones that leave you drained and doubting yourself. The next type of person isn't repetitive. They're unpredictable. They bring a different kind of tension, one that stirs the nervous system, floods the air, and leaves you bracing for something you can't name. We'll talk about them next. They don't come to you with heavy emotions. They come with noise, with urgency, with texts that say, "Call me right now," with stories that jump from one crisis to the next. Every plan with them changes at the last minute. Every conversation veers into something unexpected. You try to meet them calmly, but somehow, by the time you say goodbye, your chest is tight, your head is spinning, and your breath feels short. You were fine before the call, but now your body is buzzing, and not in a good way. This is the second kind of energy drainer, the chaotic force. The person who doesn't mean to overwhelm you, but always does. They might be full of enthusiasm. They might love you deeply. They might not even realize what they're doing. But the result is the same. You lose your center when they enter your space. It's not that they're cruel. It's that they're uncontained. And after 60, when your nervous system is more sensitive, when your recovery time is slower, when your peace has become something sacred, you cannot afford to be swept up in someone else's storm just because they don't know how to slow down. At first, you think it's just how they are. I don't want to make them feel bad. But over time, you start dreading the sound of their name on your phone. You start needing more and more time to recover from their visits. You stop trusting your own schedule because you've made space for someone who constantly disrupts it. And that's when the real damage begins. Not in your calendar, but in your confidence. You start believing that this kind of interaction is just part of love. That tension and noise are normal, but they're not. Calm is not boring. Predictability is not dull. These are the environments where you heal, where you think clearly, where you remember who you are. So how do you protect yourself? You start by observing, not judging the pattern. You notice what happens in your body when they call, visit, text. Then you begin to limit the intensity. Keep phone calls brief. Say no to last-minute plans. Suggest calm settings for visits. A quiet cafe, a walk in the park, a time-limited lunch. And most importantly, you communicate. Not with blame, with boundary. I've noticed I get overstimulated during long visits. Let's keep things shorter for now. Or, I love seeing you, but I need more structure these days. Let's plan ahead next time. If they push back, you hold steady. If they take it personally, you breathe. Because their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your health is. The older you get, the more you realize that peace is not passive. It's earned. It's protected. It's something you say yes to when you finally say no to the noise. The next person drains you differently. Not with volume, but with volume turned inward. Their voice is quiet. Their tone soft. But their words? They cut. Slowly. Carefully. And they make you doubt yourself more than any stranger ever could. They don't raise their voice. They don't insult you directly. In fact, they might call you sweetheart or dear or tough as nails. But in between those gentle phrases, they plant something else. A comment about how you're not as sharp as you used to be. A reminder that, at your age, maybe it's better to let someone else handle that. A teasing joke about your forgetfulness, your hearing, your appearance. And always with a smile. Always with a tone that says, "I'm just kidding. Lighten up." But it doesn't feel light. It feels like a weight, soft enough to miss at first, but heavy enough to carry with you for days. This is the third kind of person who drains your energy after 60, the underminer. They operate in subtle tones. They claim to care, and maybe they do, but their version of care comes wrapped in criticism, condescension, and control. They position themselves as helpful, but only by making you seem incapable. They take care of things before you even ask because they assume you can't. They correct your words in front of others, just to help. They speak about you like you're not in the room. And when you try to speak up, they accuse you of being too sensitive. That's the trick of this type of person. They make you question your reaction before you ever question their behavior. And over time, that self-doubt doesn't just live in your head. It seeps into your choices. You stop offering ideas. You stop trusting your preferences. You stop pushing back, even when something feels wrong. You slowly shrink to fit the version of you they've created. But here's what's true. You are not less. You are not slipping away. You are still capable, still wise, still worthy of being heard without correction, supported without assumption, loved without being managed. So how do you protect your energy from this person? You start by trusting your gut. If a comment stings, don't explain it away. If a joke makes you feel small, name it. You don't have to argue. You can simply say, "That didn't feel good to hear," or "Please don't speak for me. I know what I want." These responses are not confrontational. They are corrective, and they may make the other person uncomfortable. That's okay, because part of reclaiming your peace is getting comfortable with their discomfort. If they're used to being in control, they won't give it up easily. But your role is not to keep them comfortable. It's to keep yourself whole. If the pattern doesn't change, you may need distance. Fewer visits, fewer openings, less access, because your dignity is not up for negotiation. Especially now, especially after everything you've lived through. The fourth and final presence we'll talk about today is the most powerful of all. It's the one you can't avoid, because it doesn't call, it doesn't text, it lives inside your own thoughts, and it wears your voice when it speaks. They don't sit across from you. They don't show up on caller ID, but they're with you constantly. When you open your eyes in the morning, when you glance in the mirror, when you forget something simple, when you hesitate before making a decision. They don't yell, they whisper, but their voice is sharp, familiar. They say things like, "That was a stupid thing to say. You're slowing down. You should have done more with your life. You're too late now." And somehow, even though no one else hears them, you believe them because they sound like you. This is the fourth and most insidious person who drains your energy after 60. And it's not a person at all. It's the voice in your head that pretends it's telling you the truth. That voice is clever. It doesn't scream, it analyzes. It uses words like realistic, practical, humble. But what it's really doing is measuring everything you are today against some impossible version of who you think you should have been. And every time you believe it, a little more of your energy disappears. You stop applying for things. You stop reaching out. You stop speaking up. You stop dreaming. And yet, this voice wasn't born with you. It was built, piece by piece, from a parent's harsh tone, from schoolroom shame, from years of polite dismissal, from society's quiet message that after a certain age, you're expected to fade. You absorbed it. You carried it. And now it speaks without permission, but with your voice. And here's what it steals. Not just your energy, but your permission. Permission to try, to rest, to speak, to want, to hope, to begin again. Because every time you hear it and say nothing, you agree with it. But you can break that agreement. You don't have to fight it. Just interrupt it. Catch it mid-sentence. Respond with something simple and true. "That's not how I talk to myself anymore. That thought isn't helping me. I'm allowed to grow even now." It may feel awkward, childish, soft, but healing always begins with softness. That voice will resist. It will tell you that you're being dramatic. That self-compassion is indulgent. That nothing will change. Don't listen. You're not that voice. You are the one hearing it. And that makes you bigger than it. If it takes writing a counter voice and putting it on your wall, do it. If it takes saying out loud, "I deserve to be spoken to with care," say it. Every single day. Because you've lived too much life to treat yourself like an afterthought. Especially now. You still have time. You still have choice. You still get to decide how you're going to speak to the person you live with every single day. Yourself. And the moment you change that tone, everything shifts. The next person you meet feels different. The next conversation. The next risk. The next morning. Because the most powerful protection you can offer your energy isn't a locked door or a silent phone. It's a mind that speaks gently, firmly, kindly, on your behalf. Always. So why do we let them stay? The chronic complainers, the emotional storms, the smiling critics, even that harsh voice inside. Why do we keep answering the phone, showing up, nodding through conversations that leave us hollow? Why do we stay silent when we want to scream? Why do we smile when we want to walk away? It's not weakness. It's memory. It's habit. It's love. It's guilt. It's all the years we've spent trying to be the one who keeps things peaceful. And maybe somewhere along the way, we learned that our discomfort was easier to manage than someone else's reaction. So we stayed quiet. We swallowed the tension. We made room, again and again, until we forgot what it feels like to have that room for ourselves. But here's what's true, especially after 60. Your peace is not a luxury. It's your right. It's not rude to protect it. It's not cruel to ask for space. It's not selfish to say, I can't keep carrying this. People might not like it. They're used to the version of you who always says yes, who always makes time, who always listens, absorbs, holds. But you're allowed to change. You're allowed to grow into someone who doesn't abandon themselves just to make someone else more comfortable. And if that sounds unfamiliar, start small. You don't have to make an announcement. You don't have to burn bridges. You can begin with one gentle act of self-respect. One ignored call, one shorter visit, one honest sentence. I don't have the energy for this today. One moment of saying no when you've always said yes. And when the discomfort rises, as it always does, you breathe. You remind yourself, this isn't rejection. This is rebalancing. Because the people who truly love you, they'll adapt. And the ones who vanish, they were only there for your energy, not your presence. Most of all, you begin rebuilding your own capacity, your own stillness, your own sense of knowing what feels good, what doesn't, and what you no longer have to tolerate. You get to stop earning your right to rest. You get to stop apologizing for needing space. You get to stop performing kindness when you're running on empty. And in that shift, quiet, slow, deeply personal, your energy begins to return. Not all at once, but steadily. Your breath deepens. Your shoulders drop. Your calendar softens. Your reflection starts to feel more like a person you trust again. Because you stopped waiting for permission. You gave it to yourself. That's how we change. Not by calling anyone out, but by calling ourselves back. Back to the center. Back to calm. Back to strength that doesn't shout, but still holds the line. And that line? It's your boundary now. You get to draw it in pencil, in pen, in permanent marker. However you need. But you draw it. And when you do, you'll see it clearly. Your energy is yours. And it always has been.